New this morning, for the first time since the horrific murders of the Griego family, Eric Griego, the brother and uncle, is speaking out.
And he's doing it across national airwaves. He was on HLN's Dr. Drew show last night. You know, Eric Griego here, he's a former state senator and he used to be a city councilman here in Albuquerque. Now, investigators say his brother, Greg Griego, along with Greg's wife, their son, and their two daughters were both shot and killed by their other son, 15-year-old Nehemiah Griego. This all happened last Saturday morning. Now, investigators say Nehemiah may have been upset with his mother, and then when she fell asleep, he shot her, then shot everyone else in that house. And Nehemiah now facing 5 counts of murder for what investigators say he did. And last night, Eric Griego, again, went on national TV and explained why he felt the need to speak out now.
The family really was trying to wait till we buried our brother and sister and you know, nieces and nephews, and but the frenzy around this has just gotten to a level of ridiculousness that we just felt like we had to break the silence and start defending the facts.
Investigators say Nehemiah here was also a big fan of violent video games. We're going to talk more about that in a second. And prosecutors want to basically try him as an adult. So if he is found guilty, though, a judge could sentence him as a juvenile, which means he would get out of jail as soon as he turns 21. Which you can imagine now, Eric and the Griego family getting ready for what is sure to be an emotional funeral tomorrow.
Last night, a prayer vigil was held for the family at Calvary of Albuquerque, where the Griegos went for many years. The head pastor there, Skip Heizik, spoke fondly about the family, sharing stories of Greg Griego, the father, and his days as a pastor there. Pastor Heizik says despite what 15-year-old Nehemiah, the suspect, may have done, he says he is not a monster.
Nehemiah was also part of this church, and we love him, and we're concerned about him. And we want him to know that he's still loved by God and that there's restoration and reconciliation in his future.
Nehemiah is accused of gunning down his parents and his younger brothers and sisters, as we explained, in their South Valley home over the weekend. Their funeral will be held at the same church, Calvary of Albuquerque, tomorrow.
And right now, investigators don't know why they say Nehemiah slaughtered his family last weekend. But as we did mention, they do say that he was a fan of what are 2 very violent video games.
In fact, just last week, President Obama said that he wants Congress to allocate funds to see if there might be a definitive connection between those violent video games and real-life violence. So we sent our News 13's David Romero to see if New Mexico's congressional delegation thinks that that would be money well spent. David is now here with what they had to say. David?
Elizabeth, this is the 15-page plan that Mr. Obama is submitting to Congress. And one major item in there is asking for money to look for links between video games, media images, and violence. Now, the White House justifies the increase in funds for the Centers for Disease Control to conduct the research by saying that 30,000 firearm-related deaths occur each year. Quote, enough to make it a public health crisis, end quote. Representative Ben Ray Lujan's office released the following statement to News 13 saying he is encouraged that the president is taking steps to look into the cases of gun violence. He also goes on to say, quote, I support funding efforts that can provide vital information about how we should move forward with the most effective public policy. Representative Steve Pierce said in a written statement while he agrees with the president that the cases of gun violence need to be examined, the research needs to be done in an unbiased, scientific, and as neutral a manner as possible. Now, earlier last week, Congresswoman Michelle Lujan Grisham released a statement saying that she supports the president's plan. Yesterday, we did not get responses back from Senator Martin Heinrich or Senator Tom Udall's office. Meanwhile, the White House estimates the cost to do the research for the video games is going to be about $10 million. Elizabeth, back to you.
That's a pretty penny. Okay, David, thank you for that information. In all, the president's plan features 23 executive orders focusing on gun violence. Matt?
In other news for you this morning, later today, a school bus driver in Albuquerque could get locked up and arrested, accused of having meth on him, while parents at Zia Elementary School are going to get a letter explaining one very strange story. Now, this all started yesterday when the axle fell off of the school bus near Lead and Solano. There were no kids on it at the time, thankfully, but the driver, Ruben Gonzalez, did get hurt and have to go to UNM's hospital, and that's when nurses say they found meth on him. Then police are trying to figure out if Gonzalez was high on meth or had it with him when he was driving kids earlier in the day, but that's going to be easier said than done.
A reasonable time limit had passed for us to lawfully conduct a DWI investigation without violating his civil rights. We couldn't do that. They understood that.
School district says if Gonzalez really did have meth on him or in his system, he won't drive a bus ever again here.
Federal agents find a lot of guns in a northeast Albuquerque house. They swarmed the home near Carlisle and Indian School yesterday. It led to a lockdown at nearby Montezuma Elementary School. Agents are not saying a whole lot about the situation, but our news crew did see them take out computers, paperwork, a handgun, and as many as 24 rifles. Agents on scene said only the U.S. Attorney's Office was allowed to speak about the case.
Driver's licenses for illegal immigrants still a big talker up in Santa Fe, but today there will be no talk of a compromise on them. This is because legislators are talking about a plan to give the illegal immigrants driving permits instead of actual licenses, but Governor Susana Martinez says that is it's just not good enough. She doesn't want them driving at all.
That doesn't mean that I won't get various versions of this law from various different legislators that will actually pass both sides of the House and the Senate. So, I mean, I can get various versions and then choose from those versions. But to repeal the law is my #1 priority.
The governor there has tried to get legislators to stop giving illegal immigrants licenses for the past 2 years, but they've never passed a law to do that. Again, they'll try again this year. Of course, we'll be up there and we'll let you know what happens. And speaking of licenses, here's a bit of good news for you this morning. You're probably not going to have to wait in a long line at the MVD to renew your license anymore. That's because yesterday the governor unveiled a new system that lets you renew yours online as long as you meet the state's requirements and you don't have most medical conditions.
If you still haven't gotten the flu shot, there is another chance for you to get one for free. There is a free clinic in Albuquerque this weekend. It's going to be Saturday from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. at the State Public Health Office on Stanford Drive in Northeast. Walk-ins are welcome. They will also offer free whooping cough vaccine for your children.